All right, everyone. Well, welcome back to the Help Me Rhonda Show. This is where I interview sexy brands, those that are doing amazing things. They know who they are, they know what they do, and they want to leave an impact on the world around them. And today is a rather special sexy brand. In fact, I've known this sexy brand for about 22 long years. It is a second time on the show, The Unstoppable Surfer. Now, many of you may or may have not watched the very first one, but we are going to talk and go a bit deeper about now what's actually happening with the Unstoppable Surfer brand, with the Unstoppable Surfer himself. So without any further ado, Brian Swan, the Unstoppable Surfer, welcome to the Help Me Rhonda Show.
Well, thank you very much for inviting me back onto your show.
Inviting me. See, that's what the best is, this guy. He's like, I was filming for my show, like I do, and he's like, excuse me, I would like for you to interview me today.
And she looks at me and she goes, what, are you prepared? I'm like, yeah, I'm prepared. So I got prepared right before this, and we got a lot of good things. So I'm like, you know what, we have it all set up. You know, we've been together for a long time. Let's like
interview yourself.
Oh, interview myself.
What's the first question? All right, let me ask you. Okay.
You ask me.
So, obviously we talk about, I know your story, right? But there's some impactful moments, and there's always been a time in your life when it was like that aha, or that what am I doing with my life kind of moment.
Mm-hmm.
Go back to one of those moments that's happened for you that has kind of brought you to where you are today.
You know, okay, there's a few, and I'm going to give the aha moment from a recent one that you probably never heard of. And this comes back to just 1 year ago when we were taking the RV across the USA. And I was the guy, and I was the full-time driver. And I was listening to audiobooks, and I was listening to one, and I can't think of the name of it, but it's something about how to be a man, and you have to take action, and you have to do, and you have to. See, she's messing with me. She goes, look at that camera. I'm like, oh, look at that camera.
Yeah, that's your camera.
And I'm driving through Utah or Colorado. It was one of the two, and Honolulu's sitting, and I'm listening to this book, and it says there, and I already know this. This is the Expiration. I'll share that one about my father passing away of AIDS when I was young, from 11 to 16. But it's like, you have to do the things now. And it was from that moment, I'm like, you know what? There's so many things that I've been putting off. I've been putting off my Unstoppable Surfer podcast. I've been putting off my perfect day writing the course. And all the things that I'm sharing are the things that she's been saying for the last 5 years, looking at me going, when are you ever going to? I'm like, yeah. And finally, it was at that moment
So let me ask you this. Let's go ahead. So
because you're hearing this
what
for
has
the first time.
Happened? You know, what was stopping you? What do you think was stopping you from? And what maybe it's probably what stops a lot of people from doing some of the things that they want to do now.
You know, it's fear, and I'll share it with the first exercise that I ever did. I wrote out how to create your perfect day, and this was a personal development course that you bought when you got started online back in 2004, 2005. And the first exercise in this was how to create your perfect day every day. And I remember you just telling me, you should do this, you should do this. And I'm like, no. But when I saw you make money, and I'm like, wow, this is possible. But I also saw you becoming a better person. And for 6 months, I actually didn't write it out. Fear of, if you read it, would you laugh at me? My friends found it. Would they laugh at me? If I wrote something down and it didn't become true, then I'm a liar. And I had all these things in my head of why not to do it. And finally, on August 30th, 2006, I actually have a screenshot. I have a screenshot of when I wrote it out. That was the day that I wrote out what my perfect day would look like. And then since then, we made Jabril and I, our business partner.
What did you write down?
My day was how I started off. And I started it off on surfing double overhead waves. And if you're not a surfer, it's about two of me. So it's double my height. And surfing when waking up, smelling the ocean, hearing the ocean crash. I wrote out that I was going to be living in Hanalei Bay, and this is before Hanalei was born. About actually, I probably wrote this out almost the exact day she was conceived. No joke on this. If you do a dating it back, and I wrote out when I come in, my kids Hanalei, and I didn't know who the other kid was going to be. It was going to be a boy, Brian Swan, but that never happened. We stopped at one, and having breakfast, being able to conduct business. Going out and doing fun things with my wife, conducting.
So what made it so special? Like, was it so unique that, what made it, are you living it now? Like, what was it that made it so special? Because everyone like, oh, we all write that. I want to have a nice day. I want to do this. What makes this Create Your Perfect Day so different?
What makes this perfect day so different is because of my father passing away of AIDS when I was 16 years old. And it brought me back, it brings it back to between the age of 11 and 16, I saw him basically die. But what happened when I was 11, when I knew something was up, we never talked about it. It was a very odd thing where we never talked about him having the disease, him dying. I just remember one day, his thing just switched. And he went from just business to like, who wants to go to Europe? And us kids were like, my brother and sister were like, ah! And he just started taking us traveling because he knew he had an expiration date. He didn't know if he had 6 months left to live, a year, 2 years. Fortunately, he lived for 5 years, and we got to see a ton of the world together. And if you think about this, is way back in like 1985, and so way before the internet. But he wanted to like live that bucket list, the bucket list movie. And he lived the bucket list movie until the day he died. And that's what happened right then. From being a kid, we grew up, you were in Detroit, I was in a little small town in Illinois. I was 1,400 kilometers away from the ocean. But I knew that you're never guaranteed, even when you're young. And when I was in university, I wanted to study abroad. That's where I oh my God, I saw the ocean, saw somebody surf, saw a hot chick in bikini. And I was like, where has this world been? And it's from there that we met. We, for 10 years, incredible life in San Diego. And then we lost everything. And it was at that moment then to where we're like, you know what? We could just rebuild here in San Diego. But you made a vow about Hanalei. And I was looking at this perfect day, and we were never guaranteed another day. So we just started traveling.
Yeah, so I mean, and this is why you're so passionate about it, because you experienced an expiration date of someone that started living their bucket list before we really knew what it was. Mm-hmm. And that was your dad, and he was an example. But you said what's held you back from doing all these things is you were fearful.
Absolutely.
So you were fearful when you wrote out the perfect day. And what were you were afraid if people were going to read it or look at it.
Right.
So what happened, since obviously you wrote it, now you're pretty much living your perfect day. How did it come up again for you? Why did that happen again? Being someone that lives this perfect day every day, how did you get fearful again to actually start producing or creating the podcast or creating, the beard product? Like, what happened for you?
What happened was living your perfect day is not just doing the one thing that you're good at. What I realized at that moment, back while I was driving the RV, is that I didn't have the best relationship with you. And when I'm saying it was great, right? And there's a lot of times you're having good, but good is just good. It's not great. And I'm like, what can I do to better my relationship with you? What can I do to better my relationship with Hanalei and business partners and family and friends? And I'm like, how can I better myself even further with my body and my spiritual being? And I'm like, you know what? I'm going to tackle all aspects of these. And the biggest thing is that if you're not pursuing your own thing, I've always kind of been behind the scenes, but that's just my excuse, right? I mean, it really is. And I'm like, I'm going off and I'm doing the things I've talked about, not just the blah, 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 or as my wife says, don't be a peacock. So and once you start doing it, once I started putting the things about, I'm coming out, I'm going to host my Unstoppable Surfer Retreat. We wrote a pitch out together and I started pitching it. And then it starts working and you're like, oh my God. Once you start doing the things, and then it gets to get the momentum going. And, it's
so I think this is a really good example. So I thank you for, sharing and revealing that, because I think everyone here, they might look at you or our family and think, oh, they're unstoppable. They do it all. They got it all together. But there's real things that happen on a daily basis. And there's also real ways, you know, people looking at, you know, getting fearful of doing certain things. And, you know, because it does, all you need is takes that one step. You're right. Hanalei always says this, you know, journey of 1,000 miles starts with the very first step.
Absolutely.
Right. And so now share that. What is the Unstoppable Surfers podcast? What's that going to be?
You know,
what's it going to be like? Who's going to be on it?
Okay,
what are you going to talk about?
So this is something I've been putting off, and it's like with the fear of like, what do I want to do? The biggest thing what I've learned is that if you're going to do anything, you have to please yourself first and foremost. And if I'm just doing interviews like this, I mean, I love this because I get to be interviewed on here, but for me, the podcast that I learn and listen to and love the most, I just like listening to that person. And I'm like, you know what? I'm gonna go on my daily ventures. I have to have it as a daily thing. I'm very regimented with my morning routine, and I'm like, this is just part of my daily thing, so I don't have to think about it. And I want to be able to share the life stories on how they also correlate and are like parables to our relationship. How surfing is, you know, can be in conjunction with business and my, you know, spirituality of meditation and stuff. Just my own personal journey. Because if I solve my own problems, maybe a few other people will like, oh, you know, this helps me out. And that's what I've liked about my podcast that I love the most, are exactly what.
Someone just sharing their inner depth.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love that. And then, you know, you might end up having some pro surfers and talk.
I'm going to have that. That's like a special thing once a week.
Yeah, I love that. That's a direction. So it's like really a depth of personal development, but how to live your perfect day every day. But it doesn't mean like it's perfect. It doesn't mean that it's like easy every day, right?
No.
So I think that's what confuses people.
Well, you know, I call myself the Unstoppable Surfer. I tell you what, when we called ourselves the Unstoppable Family, man, we had to live up to that crap. That's like, it's not easy. Unstoppable Surfer, man, it's like, all right, so now I've named myself this, and now it's like I better be able to surf, and now I'm pushing myself into some heavy, heavy waves. And I tell you what, there's fear. Like, and I've shared it with you. It's like, man, I got butterflies, and when it's like up to 20 foot, and you got the best of the best in the world, I could go off to the small break and, you know, take it easy on there. But it's like, you know what? It's like we only have one life. You got like, I'm not just gonna sit on the bench. I want to go in the gladiator pit, and it's more exciting. Do you get beat up? Hell yeah. Do you get like just like crushed? Hell yeah. Do you have people that are just incredibly better than you, and you're like, oh, who am I? But that's the only way you grow, is if you really start pushing your limits. And right now, I'm pushing limits on all aspects, but I'm actually feeling like I'm really living now. And I'll just share this. Like, there's so many days that I wake up just with anxiety of what, you know, it's like, okay, I got to accomplish this, I got to do this. But the one thing that I know, and this is when I got a mentor, you know, it's like I started being very structured. My wife, she always says, structure gives you freedom. I've been listening to this for freaking ever, and it's finally getting into this noggin. But it's true. So when I wake up, I have a freaking routine that I stick to. I don't deviate from it at all. It doesn't matter if we've had, you know, a few too many wines the night before.
You
we
never
stayed
had
up.
a few too many wines.
No, I know. But that's part of the family and fun as well. So.
Yeah, right on. Okay, I love this. So you're stretching your limits. You're going to the Mentalized. What I love the most is that really when you know what you want, when you know what your guided light is and your true north is, and you focus and you start taking those first steps, the universe transpires in your favor.
100%.
So what happens? Boom, you say, I want to do a surfer's retreat. I'm doing my podcast, and I want to be, you know, a pro surfer. You get asked to come. You reach out to this guy about your retreat, and you get asked to come out, and you leave on Tuesday.
I'm leaving on Tuesday.
To go where?
I'm going to Macaroni's Resort. And this is a place that we may be having the Unstoppable Surfer Retreat at next year, and you're going to hear more about that. And there's going to be pro surfers. We're going to have our filmmaker. I'm bringing a little crew. And now I have, you know, it goes against, I mean, one more time, and this is so important. When you're doing something that really is to really fill your soul, other people will start coming along. And now I have this crew, and they're like, we're coming with. And it's like, holy shit, all I'm doing is solving my own problems. And now it's like, you're like, wow, it's like, here's others. They're like, yeah. Because, it's like, when you're passionate about something, it's like, it's contagious. Not contagious like the coronavirus, okay? But anyway.
Yeah, so cool. I mean, that's true. Like, you start asking for what you want, and you be aware of what you're going to get, because you will get it.
Absolutely.
In a different way. All right, so we've got the Unstoppable Surfer podcast is going to come out. That's exciting. The retreat, which I'm excited about that too, because you and I have talked about it. I'm like, obviously I've held hundreds of events for the last 10 years, and it's exhausting. There's a lot going on. I'm like, you know what? Yeah, I'll come and help you. I'll attend this event.
10.
I'm not putting it together. You're doing it all, and that's why it hasn't happened. That's why finally you're like, I'm doing it, because you knew that I wasn't going to put it together, because I want to attend. I want to enjoy it. So I'm excited, because it's going to be at a 5-star resort in the Mentalized,
and we're going to have it here in Bali too. It's going to be a 2-step thing. So
it's a bit bittersweet though too, because the last time that we were in Mentalized 15 years ago is when I tore my hamstring, broke my back.
2004. I know.
And I haven't surfed really again since that. Yeah. And now you're going back for the first time, which is cool.
I'm going, but I'm bringing you back, baby, and I think you're going to be able to surf. Now we got Hanalei. She's a full-time surfer.
Yeah. So that's exciting stuff. Now, then you were also putting together a Unstoppable Surfer beard product. Why a beard product, and what is going to make this one different than any other beard oil or
why am
cream?
Well, first I got a beard. Now, if you notice about my beard, my wizard-like beard, there's not too many like this. So I'm going to share the story from when we went to the Marketers Cruise about 4 years ago. And someone showed me a video about the Dollar Beard Club. I just YouTube it, Dollar Beard Club. And I was like, he was a big old studly man, and he had a big beard, and he had the funniest videos. And I went, that is epic. And I started growing a beard just because of that. And then my beard got way too long, and we cut it back. Now it's just nice and reasonable. And once again, I've not joked, but you're like, why don't you have a beard oil? Hanalei's like, why don't you have some beard products? I'm like, yeah. I'll get to it. I finally said enough's enough. And I think the most beautiful thing about during this time of the coronavirus that we're in right now is that we can't leave anywhere, and there's no excuses. Right now, I have the best relationship that I've had with you, my daughter, spirituality, I'm in my exercise, everything. I'm like, I have absolutely no excuse. And I used to just blame it like, oh, we're traveling, we're doing this. Just excuse after excuse. I'm just flat out telling you. And now it's like, if I don't do it now, when the hell am I ever going to do it?
Yeah, wow. I appreciate you sharing that, because I think it's important for everyone to hear. And I would also, when it comes to this beard product and the product itself, I really think, with our passion for sustainability and, eco-friendly ingredients that Hanalei uses in her clothing, right? The shirt you're wearing is bamboo.
This is Hanalei's here, and this is the podcast.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's Hanalei's shirt. And
then we use bamboo fibers and modal sustainable products that can really contribute back to our earth as part of our values, the base of our values. And I think that's going to be more important than ever, as well as the formulation can be, it'll be eco-friendly, it'll be natural, and something good for the environment. And surfers, of course, it's got to be good for the ocean.
Absolutely. Yeah. And it's got to be good for your lady. So it's going to smell in very nice. So if you get my stuff, you might even land an unstoppable mama, but that's not guaranteed, okay? Read the disclaimers.
All right, well, obviously, guys, we're going to end with that commercial break. But, think about it. Think about if you were able to live your perfect day every single day. What would you do? Who would you want to spend it with? Where would you want to be? And who do you want to talk to every day? What if you could actually live your perfect day every single day? And if you could learn from someone that's done it. So I suggest you go and make sure that you're following the Unstoppable Surfers podcast. It's going to be out very, very soon. Yep. And think about today, am I living my perfect day? Is what I'm doing right now, Is it going to leave an impact on the world? Is it going to get me closer to where I want to be? And is it going to help create a better relationship with you, your spouse, your children, and your community? Those are the three very questions that I asked myself that completely changed who I was, what I was doing, and the impact that I was leaving on the world. And here we are today, Unstoppable Family, living in Bali, hosting Unstoppable Rhonda Show, doing some amazing things because we're passionate about it and because we love it and because that's what a sexy brand is. So everyone, I'm going to leave you with this. If you're going to create a brand, create a sexy brand. If you're going to be anything, be unstoppable.
Be unstoppable.
We'll see you on the next show.
Oh! I was going to kiss you. And I got couple.
That was hilarious.